Okay, so we've talked about some of the causes of this productivity anxiety, and we didn't even tap into capitalism in our individualistic culture and our schooling systems, which, you know, as Anna Lemke talks about nature, nurture, and neighborhood, right? So we have like nature, our biology, we have the nurture of the system we live in, and the neighborhood of we can be productive 24 hours a day now. Um, but what about some solutions, some ideas, some different ways of being in the journey than being
Hmm.
caught in the cycle of it?
Well, I would say, if you go back to the reinforcement learning piece, the most important component there is how rewarding something is. And so you described it so nicely, that hunger. If the reward is hunger for more and we don't pay attention to that, we're just going to get stuck in that cycle. So I think the first thing I would say is just bringing some awareness in and noticing, how rewarding it is when we are constantly trying to check off that to-do list, or when we're, constantly anxious, trying to trying to be well with all the wellness people.
It's so ugly, Dr. Judd. I'm like exposing my ugly side here
Oh,
in the
but
service of helping others.
yeah, vulnerability is strength, 100% there. So that's the first thing I would say. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, awareness that we're caught in the cycle of it and how satisfying or dissatisfying is it? Sort of the checking in on that. And that's sort of what's driving the cycle. Like, what is the cue?
Hmm.
Um, there's going to be certain cues that trigger us into that productivity mode. And sometimes there are things like social comparison or
Hmm.
not good enough feelings or, um, you know, just everyone has their flavor. But yeah, what is the behavior? But really focusing on the consequence. Hmm.
Hmm. Another thing that comes to mind is goes back to this destination versus journey. You know, destination tends to be, when we get there, we're satisfied. Or at least for the time being, until we want to go somewhere else. And so it's kind of like this drive, this hunger that says, go, 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 go. Okay, now you got there. Now where else are we going to go? And it can induce some anxiety when we're like, okay, I'm here. Now what? Where, what's next? So here, if we're focused on the journey and the joy that comes from the journey itself, we may be less likely to be sucked into those destination cycles where it's, this, now this, now this, now this. You probably know people that go on holiday and they visit a new country or a new part of the world, and they've got this full itinerary of go, 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 go. I have to visit every site in this city and then get to the next city. And then, just reading their itinerary makes me exhausted. I can't imagine what it's like to actually do that. So if it's the destination mindset, and then it's like, wow, how was that? Well, I didn't have time to actually reflect on it. If we take a moment and just look at how the journey itself can be as, if not more rewarding, it might help us, going back to your point about values, it might help us shift our values toward the journey as compared to the destination.
Yeah, I think it's seeing the destination and the journey, right? Like that
Mm.
it's in my family, my husband's Italian, and they'll start talking about what they're having for dinner at lunch, you know? And then you're eating dinner and they're talking about what's going on for dessert, right? And it's like, "Wait a minute, hold on. Can we just be in the lunch before we move on to dinner?" And but that's also part of it is what I'm trying to do more of, and this actually is like hard to do, but is savoring the feelings of completion in the here and now.
Hmm.
Like rather than having my to-do list, having a what did I complete today list. And it's different. So like a to-do list
Hmm.
is this never ending, it will never, there's always more. There is laundry being dirtied as I speak when my children are at school, right? So there it's never going to end. But my completion list, when my completion list lines up with my values, I can say things like, wow, I was really present when my kids walked in the door from school today, and that's on my values list of something that I want to be growing in my life is being more present with my family. Or
Hmm.
I took um, a break at lunch and I did some movement. I can put that on my completion list. So those types of things that aren't productive in anyone else's eyes, but for me feel like a sense of being in the journey of my life and is satisfying. And at the end of my life, when I look back on it, will probably be the things that felt the most meaningful to me than like writing enough blog posts and newsletters. Painful. Yeah. Okay. So being in the journey. Any other tips as we wind up this session on productivity anxiety?
Well, and I would say just zooming in on both the journey and bringing that together with the reward. How does it feel? Can we look at the qualitative difference between, say, the journey and the destination, and see, is there one that has that electric driven quality to it, and is there one that helps us find that space between the rocks where there's just an ease in the doing? So kind of being with ourselves, being in the experience, like you're talking about, being present. How does that feel itself? So that's the one other thing I would say to help, kind of concretize that. Like, how can we make this pragmatic for anyone that wants to explore this themselves?
And especially that Amazon reviewer, because that's what she wants. What are the 3 steps, Judd?
Right.
Which in itself is productivity anxiety, right? We need everything to be boiled down to 3 steps for us, but that's good. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you. I think that this is helpful for folks that are starting to just, I don't know, like we can look at our lives a little bit differently, maybe than the way that we've just kind of all gotten caught up in this wave of doing more, but feeling like we're not doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a really unhappy place to be in. So hopefully this will shift some people's ideas around it as well. So thank you.
Yes, may it be so.
In this episode, we talked about how to be in the journey of your life rather than so focused on the destination. And part of that is awareness of noticing when you are caught up in this type of productivity anxiety and shifting your energy, your attention, and your behavior to something that's more satisfying. If you've read A Liberated Mind by Stephen Hayes, you'll see that it walks you through these 6 core processes of ACT that we talk about on this show. But there's also something else in that book that Stephen Hayes talks about that is linked to some of our productivity anxiety and our unhealthy striving. And that is our core yearnings. Dr. Hayes talks about these core yearnings that all humans have and also can get misdirected. And when we're looking at something like productivity anxiety, I think that part of that is also our core yearnings that have gone sideways on us. So, for example, we all have a core yearning to belong, not just to fit in, but to actually have a sense of I belong here, I matter, I am part of. And when we are caught in productivity anxiety, sometimes we are striving so hard to fit in. We're doing so much to keep up with the Joneses and belong. We forget that we already do belong. We are already good and we already are enough. Another core yearning is our yearning for orientation, our sense of space and location in the world. Often when we are in productivity anxiety, we have this forward moving orientation. We're never in the present moment. We're always thinking about the next moment where we're headed. And that yearning for orientation to find some place out there in the future that we're supposed to get to is a yearning that's gotten misdirected, because we can orient ourselves into the here and now, into the journey, as Dr. Jed would say, not just the destination. And finally, we have a yearning for competence. We have a yearning for mastery, to feel like we are growing and we are learning and we're achieving things, that is a human yearning for competence. But that can get misdirected too when we are caught up in productivity, anxiety, and unhealthy forms of striving, because we get so focused on our task lists and our to-dos and our trying to achieve competence and mastery that we move our finish line out as soon as we get there, and we don't actually feel that we've accomplished anything. So, for your daily practice this week, I want to take what we learned from Dr. Jed today about positive and negative reinforcement, what we know about those human core yearnings, and actually help you feel more satisfied and more grounded in your life. And this is how we're going to do it. First, instead of getting hooked into the doing more but never feeling like you're doing enough, let's focus on some behaviors that help give a sense of orientation, belonging, and competence. So, behaviors that help you feel more oriented are behaviors that foster your mindfulness of the present moment. How can you be more in your life as you're moving through it? Behaviors that help you with belonging are behaviors that focus on your interconnection and your enoughness. And behaviors that help you with your competence are behaviors that help you feel like you've completed a task, that you have downloaded into your nervous system, that you are acting in ways that line up with your values, and that you've done that for today, and that is enough. So that you create a new cycle instead of being caught in this productivity anxiety. You're acting in ways that keep you present, that give you a sense of belonging, and give you a sense of satisfaction and completion. One suggestion I have around that goes to the rocks in the jar approach. Choose how many rocks you want to put in your jar. It could be 5, it could be 10. But those are your rocks in your jar. You have a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of you, and you want to make sure there's space between those rocks. So choose enough that it fills the jar, but not too much that you're squeezing everything in. That will help you feel a sense of completion and really download that into your nervous system. It'll also help you to choose wisely what you're going to take off your never-ending to-do list to put into your rocks in the jar. And the way that you choose that is through your values, through what's most important to you. What will make me feel like I have a sense of belonging? What will make me feel like I have a sense of orientation? What will make me feel like a sense of competence? Okay? I look forward to hearing how this goes for you.